Next question. Who, when, where, and when are you most likely to contract Lyme disease? Well, the answer is, anywhere. There's stories of people being infected who never leave the house. The dog brings the tick home. There's people being infected in their back gardens. But there are high-risk areas. And indeed, Scotland is one of the very high-risk areas. And in fact, if you look at studies, probably of total numbers of cases throughout the UK, Scotland is disproportionately represented in number of Borrelia infections annually. If you go to areas like Old Lyme, Connecticut, it's very high. In America, it tends to be regional. So the East Coast is quite high, but it's throughout America now. It's spreading. Global warming is changing things. Interestingly, a number of years, my understanding is the Americans delivered a whole bunch of deer from Maine and repopulated those deers in the Midwest to the states of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And in repopulating the deer had ticks on them. So a new endemic area over the last 20, 30 years has been Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Similarly, ticks are carried by birds, and birds, geese, for example, are flying on a daily basis between Scandinavia and Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales, and for example, I gave you the example of tick-borne encephalitis being found in ticks in two areas of the UK, the region of the New Forest and also in Dorset. Those ticks likely came on the back of a geese flying from Eastern Europe or Scandinavia to the UK. But ticks are all over the place, and I can give you many situations of my patients who have had tick-borne infections, who traveled abroad, who traveled to northern Scotland, who traveled to the Isle of Mull, who traveled to Glencoe, who traveled to Glendalough, people who never left South Dublin on the foothills of the Dublin Mountains, a lady in Belfast who's never left Belfast, but her dog brought a tick home into the kitchen, and there's also an English rugby captain who from 10 years ago who was walking his dog in Twickenham Park, and the tick was brought home from the park by the dog. Another patient who was in suburban London, Bushy Park, and on and on and on. Patients who had never left Glasgow, who were in Rookin Glen. So ticks are everywhere. Ticks are ubiquitous. More common in some locations, less common in other areas, but more common in spring and autumn, but in mild climates that can extend into the winter season as well. So ticks are ubiquitous, all areas, but probably higher incidence in the Scottish Highlands and southwest England, the New Forest area. There are maps available, and you can actually Google and find out exactly where the high prevalence tick infestations are throughout the United Kingdom. It's equally common in males and females. It can occur in any age. I've seen cases in children with children playing in playgrounds, and children playing in playgrounds are obviously often crawling on the ground. So as mentioned before, they're more likely to get tick bites in other parts than adults who are usually standing and getting the bites in their lower extremities. But ticks are ubiquitous, and people can be infected any time of year. They may present with diffuse manifestations. They may present with neuroborreliosis. They may present with migratory arthritis. They may present with unexplained fevers, they may or may not have a rash. So this is the challenge of Lyme disease. Anybody can contract the disease, and you may or may not remember a rash. You may not think you're at risk for Lyme because you have not been in the Northern Highlands, but it is much more common than we understand, both in the European Union and in America. It is not reportable except by antibody testing. Not everybody gets an antibody test. If you go to your GP and you're treated for Lyme, and you have the rash, classically, it won't show up in the statistics. So I think there's many more cases of Lyme disease than we're aware, and European Union people travel all over the world, and some of them travel nowhere, and they are all at risk of Lyme disease, some more so and some less so, depending upon the seroprevalence of the tick population and what percentage of those tick populations are infested with Lyme and other infections.